Kagyu, Droden, Kunchab has the honor of hosting this momentous event at which we will receive teachings and blessings from the illustrious head of our noble lineage, His Holiness the 17th Gyalwang Karmapa. Before we begin the proceedings, it is also my pleasure to introduce to you Lama Lodru Rinpoche, who is the spiritual director of KDK and the driving force behind much of the Dharma activity in San Francisco in the last 4 decades. He has also done so much to bring us all here together today. Lama Lodru Rinpoche completed his own training and education at the monasteries of His Holiness the 16th Gyalwang Karmapa and His Eminence Kalu Rinpoche, and then was sent to San Francisco in 1974 to establish one of the first Tibetan Buddhist meditation centers in America. He has been working ardently and tirelessly ever since to pass on the pristine tradition that was entrusted to him by his own teachers, and also to help tame the wild minds of generations of Dharma students in America. I am honored to introduce to you Lama Lodru Rinpoche.
So today we have really auspicious day, and I want to say all of you welcome, and the monastic sangha, Rinpoches, Abbot, and all of these Ogyen here who came with such open their heart devotion to His Holiness 16th Gyalwang Karmapa. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to serving this organization together here, this group here today. I hope you will be receive great blessings, and when you get blessing, it's important you get the blessing, but you have to keep the blessing and maintain the samaya. That's important. And sometimes we normal. I've been America 40 years. American people is, I'm become American almost now. So sometimes American people in front one face and turn around another face. I learned from you that too. So I hope we will be not do that. So His Holiness blessing is precious, rare. If you use and fertilize, this has truly had some result from it. So I let to Dr. John Burrow will introduce more about His Holiness, and my broken English make more loud and more foolish, so I'm stopping right now here. And thank you for you all coming, and all the Rinpoches at Campbell.
Your Holiness, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Lama Lodru Rinpoche and the Board of Directors of Kagyu, Droden, Kunchab, it is our great pleasure to welcome His Holiness the 17th Gyalwang Karmapa Ogyen Trinley Dorje to San Francisco. We are immensely blessed and privileged to have His Holiness with us here today to plant the seeds of the true Dharma in our hearts and minds. Through the blessing of His presence and the inspiration of His example, our mundane thoughts and actions transcend the worldly level and become elevated to that of our highest aspirations. His Holiness's visit to the United States this year is a remarkable gift to California and especially to San Francisco. A beautiful city with beautiful people from all over the world who represent diverse cultures and traditions. We offer heartfelt thanks to the board members of the Karmapa Foundation, the Dzogchen Ponlop Rinpoche, Eric Columbel, and Dekila Chungyalpa, as well as the director of this tour, Mr. Peter Volz. We owe a great debt to all of you for making this visit possible. Thank you. We also give our sincere thanks to the Honorable Karma Chungyalpa, His Holiness's General Secretary, whose wisdom, dedication, and skill have contributed so much to flourishing of the Dharma activity around the world. We extend also a warm welcome and many thanks to His Holiness's entourage, attendants, and personal guard. Also to the translators who will be making sure that there is a webcast in English, Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, excuse me, and Spanish. And the website for that is at serpulabrang.org. We greatly appreciate all of your efforts and hard work. And of course, I want to express profound gratitude to the spiritual director of Kagyu Droden Kunchab, Lama Lodru Rinpoche, whose dedication and efforts have made it possible to welcome His Holiness here today. Rinpoche, your generous work, patience, and skill over the years have helped us become more suitable vessels for the precious teachings we are about to receive. Thank you, Rinpoche, from the countless students whose lives you have so greatly benefited.
What is this?
So, the convergence of many auspicious conditions and the efforts of many dedicated people have brought us here together today to share a remarkable experience. His Holiness the 17th, His Holiness is the 17th, excuse me, in an unbroken chain more than 900 years of conscious incarnation and manifest enlightenment. Let us remember that hearing and seeing Him, we are in the presence of a living Buddha, with direct access to His limitless, awakened compassion. May we share the benefits of our immense good fortune with all beings everywhere. With this, I make a very warm welcome to Your Holiness the 17th Karmapa. He will be with us shortly. Thank you.
Looks busy. Yes. I did. Oh. Tadari also the Kagyu Droden Gyalwang.
Right.
Ane chuzo ki Dorje tone nambalenge zu jea ki kukab chung delia ane gabshra chu shwa da kya chamde pebedelia ye gosuye.
I'm very happy to be together with you at this gathering that was organized by Dorden Kunchab and Kagyu Droden Kunchab. And very happy to see you all. Welcome.
Ane yedon jelolia azu chezolia and Kagyu Droden Gyalwang chezolia Dorje Did Chuzo the Chushu Chuzo member the Zotina Shongumendo Zaza
Lassa?
Cesar da Lama Tidus and Yamyon Saja and the combat of the ledge.
Lassa?
That the Kizisha is chewing Bada.
Lassa?
And Kandaya the ring Misse talk to yours in a course on time in a talk the topic the garrison topic Misse. Mendo and the Lameta, Joran Karashian and Digres, the Sundu. That Karashian and Digres, the entities Tishin the marriage.
Lassa?
Says that it's kind of tricky. The Hindustani. Okay.
In 2008, I had the opportunity to visit the actual Dharma center of Kagyu Droden Kunchab, and it was very crowded because I heard that not even all of the members can fit inside the Dharma center. There are so many members. And so I think Lamala gained some experience from that occasion, and this time he decided to rent a hall for the talk. And I heard that there was a talk today, but I didn't hear what the topic was. And Lamala told me there's no special topic. I could teach about whatever I wanted. I could talk about whatever I wanted. So since there's no special topic, then it becomes kind of tricky. I don't quite know what to say. I think I, the translator, don't know what to say. I might have misphrased that a little bit, but
Daddy, Chidando, Hashre. And Tappen to formal Kashre, Loma, G. Kashre, Nancy, Lobson Shane. That you sing among which I have dropped the parody. And says that it is the formal Shana, somebody was Chingo.
Lassa?
In an Arashda, the person Koran formal Shira means and formal shell, the Galer of Stua.
Lassa?
And drain you stand him. Elchidangi and him Gyalwang good Juruba and and the Chambical Miss Javayo de Chadi Ore, and Anashin con Miss Gichena, and Nupsholia pyo nama sangebi ta jidang sange temba andi nane pyo nama sangebi temba pengen nga shue ten du chadi yare andi Hindustane kyansu nalone kashelia den konda dan jeba yeba samarbe ta du chadi yare sam du chengdo andi Hindustan di junzel dene ane ngaran이냐 다 다다버도 지 계급이야 계급 니즈리야 나도 로투요 말에 다 디나네 아메리카리아 다팅 다리디 숨버레 제가 미세기 가주에 녜게 3년 나로리아 영화 주주벌 다 안지 아메리카기 제바디 서머베다지 레명 제바디 사부의 인상 대기 균선을 때네 알아이네 야네 안도데 영토 버주치 되지 중화도 질량 지도 수요 수요
Lassa? I think most of the attendees of today's talk are students of Buddhism, and therefore I thought it would be suitable to teach on some kind of formal topic. But the challenge is that I myself am not a very formal person. So we'll see what happens with regard to that. But in general, it is wonderful to be here in the United States of America because, as you know, His Holiness the 16th Gyalwang Karmapa had a very strong connection with the United States of America. And I think that he was one of the earliest masters to strongly propagate the teachings of Buddha Dharma in the West. And so, furthermore, I think that there are many of the students gathered here who had a very strong connection with His Holiness the 16th Gyalwang Karmapa. In terms of my own travels, I've only been able to visit 2 foreign countries so far in my life, the United States, of course, being one of them. And since the United States had such a profound connection with His Holiness the 16th Gyalwang Karmapa, I personally regard the U.S. as a place that would be very beneficial for me to return to again and again. Sumba, right, yeah. Right, and so this, of course, being my 3rd trip to the United States.
ane da 하루도 ane 별이야 다들 제가 가지고 별 간지 정리야 다간다 지 다 롱어 다 동차 링리 서머베 다 동차 링리야 아니 지 최 냠내차 서머다 지 최소하게 지 가지고 롭정차 좀마 세베 양디지 수수 규를 자르체 수수 니지가 초하단 자 수수 규를 자르체这个냠내차 체 다 뒤주 방고 싶 당시这个大看到还是龙东茶人里啊都是那不是人就是呢ane 다대 뒤줄이야 엔다 농동차만 묘진리야 뜻지기 가수에 비미즈에기 냠내 채바당 다나 신기 experience somewhere 다 제샤베기 ane 최디 아주 진짜 불림부 참으러야 좀 share 채하러 봐 그 고시게 하러 지다 론주야로 다들 지금 뒤주로 지리야 도도할 삼정도
In the snowy land of Tibet, the Buddha Dharma has remained for over 1,000 years. And so during the millennium and then some that the Dharma has remained in Tibet, the Dharma has been practiced in a pure and authentic way, in a way in which it wasn't just an object of study or intellectual endeavor, but in a way in which it was really applied to the hearts and minds of the people who practiced it. Many individuals practiced the Buddha Dharma with great authenticity and sincerity, fully embraced by the experience of compassion. And it was this way for over 1,000 years. And the era at which we've arrived now is one in which this tradition of Buddha Dharma, this experience of Buddha Dharma that was practiced by Tibetan people for over 1,000 years is now being shared widely throughout the world for everyone to enjoy. This is the point in time at which we have arrived now.
아직 잠니지 거를 시엔 증명로
라상.
잠니지 거 아마시디 가르시에는 드그데스데 안 지신 지면게는 지도와 어디 괜찮아서 안다 드린도 잠니지 거를 지시에비나 증명로 삼정도스
라상.
다마시 뒤주 가서래 다들 지원면도 다 나간다 드린 아주 간지제래샤
So since I've been given free rein to choose any topic, I think that it would be good for us to discuss loving kindness and compassion.
No topic, no time. Daddy 딱 안다지 최 냠는 근데 시험입니다. 최 냠는 지사디 안지 가수라다 뒤주를 써야지다. 망부지기 formal practice 자기 뒤주를 써야지. 그래서你们지금 나눠야 당하고 같이 미냐 나도 양은 공다를 같이 지내야 뒤지 뒤주 써야지. 냠는 차도 지기 알아. 근데 야부시라래. That is this battery charge 없이 간다지 수지 니마지 나로래야 쉽지기 다 exhaustic som을 내가 먹고 싶지제 exhaustic 갈래 쉽지가 다나 신기 지sem대 주부를 차디에 인상 난지 formal practice 제제 다 간다 아주 sem대 마지 쉬어야지당 뒤어야지 This chalia, formal practice chadi, I wish I used something of those. This Susu Gala, Tuzuruchi, Susu Sem, Takashurti, Susu relaxed chak. Lusim Niga, relaxed chak, Tuzustandi, the catch of Stali something.
Of course, one of the ways that we practice the Dharma is in the context of formal practice. And formal practice is something that we need to make time for. We might set aside time in the morning or in the evening, but some formal practice, I think, is very good to do because it's similar to a time of day where we take to recharge our batteries. Throughout the day, we become very exhausted. We have many things to do. Our minds become quite disturbed sometimes due to all of this. And therefore, it's very helpful to set aside some time where we're only concentrating on relaxing our body and mind. This helps to pacify our mind and to tame our mind. And I think that for this reason, formal practice is very important.
다이미네야 최저냠을 자사디 relax 차다. 다가는 신기지 that relax ya dana si pa this ma ji shiwarab cha tezam mai bache tezam lo mane ta dele hlagbaji karshwa chumde dya ji ya ngaju samdongga de shibji ke 좀 chali ya ra ta de conditioner no ta de zo de ngaju gi emotionalism ta dealing cha some ngaju sim the nyomo de ba ji nyembo de ya sanan da do ana nyomo dang ji karshwa da 다 dealing 잘하는 가사래
라서
다 대상 오늘인데 벽에도 인지시라 세처만 됐어야나 아니야 이제 당 다이네 개바스kem 다 드네주 다디 개좀십 차려 dealing 잘하디 요몬 다 emotional 사디 and 삼성 아들 심들 삼성아 도박하려 연데 열었으나 땅 아주 녀모스야디 파 라즘 주로이나 안다 아주 emotional 비바 답 데버치라고 하르디 임비네다 녀모스야디 베나 머리버드치미나 emotional 서비스 서로한테 좀 임체 머리버스야디 양코란 지 가슈에 아주 emotional 토한 머리베이미 다 삼성의 용어를 대 엠베는 다디 디난 include 제도에 나면 하고도 다 간다야 다 녀모려야 봐 녀모 대야서란 라도 야나 녀모다 냠도 다 가서 다 내가 제서 말다 디 딜리 양아주지 년된지 삼동과디 개좀 칭찬해 주세요.
맞아. However, our practice shouldn't be done just for the sake of relaxing. Relaxing is, of course, one component, pacifying the mind and so forth, but we need to accomplish an aim that is superior to that. And I think that one of the aims that we also need to accomplish in this way is working with our emotions, learning to deal with our emotions, or applying an antidote to our mental afflictions. So it's interesting when we look at the terminology here. In Tibetan you have the term nyunmong, in Sanskrit you have the term klesha. Sometimes when we speak very loosely, we say the word emotions in English, but it might be helpful to note that that doesn't quite map on 100% to the concept we're talking about here when we say klesha, something that disturbs the mind. Because ignorance, for example, or non-awareness is considered a klesha, but we wouldn't normally speak of that as an emotion. Maybe sometimes, but probably not most of the time. So it's good to just bear that in mind as we proceed through our conversations. In any case, I think that our Dharma practice must definitely serve as an antidote to the mental afflictions, and therefore working with and learning to deal with our emotions becomes an important purpose of our practice.
Spiritual practice, Dharma practice, that commercial purpose, sometimes that is weekend of the spiritual resort and of change. Energy, meditation chair, relax, yoga chair, relax chair, and the spiritual massage of this keyboard. Lubusu de won the jiwa something or lasa time when it and chain yamling to Kashwataji. When it changed, there's a mind in the Maimba. Digi this Devaji than the Kashwaji, keyboard of G. You're being a biomass. Lasa that is intensive exercise somewhere. That's Jondar. nembushra cheleachi da khashwe intensive exercise somna ji nangsem liya da khandra exercise achi tadi samsam 미망고 찔려야 돼. 기부 용어 말다. 대버시라 용어 말다. That's not easy.
That's all.
잘했잖아. 최저도 안에 아주기 배는 곰시 닝버스 말বে. 다지 박사 닝버드 좀 요아 당체. 박사 싸버지. 곰시 싸버지. 아주 녀모 발이야. 곰바 닝버드 좀 봐. 가르숑 당체. 안 곰지 싸버지 잠바다 니지나 가리나 다간다지 셈리야 콤바 싸버지 콤지 싸버지 아기 베주체고 예비인사 다디 not easy 알하버도 지 최저하나 가셔서나 내가 가서 personal mentality som을 다지 미시가 거라 런신 거라 교원 동그서 기저봐 다디 우마이는 this kala khabar shiba that is a series on this gomgyab nyamre che dinde thon yuan rodo sa ji yorba that is 대외경 kala khabu shibchi paji jida siga sa dan dingye siga la de paji yuwa tong me ba ji dan azu namji dan an dingye siga re 제가 다 탑시 미도 사르 신고 봐 다 이민의 최소 나는 시에비민 다디 딩예 시가를 사주하면 딱 하나 그 교연도나 안디 교화동 과지 당 안디 소주 잡고하를 처리해 인사 다들 내나 보지 말아 맞아 안디 인주스안에 디 intensive exercise som말 받아지 시다 그지 깔래 잡고야지 디진서 섬도
Sometimes these days, spirituality is used for commercial purposes. Sometimes we have presentations such as the chance to go to a spiritual resort for a weekend. We might do some meditation, feel very nice, do some yoga, maybe get a little massage.
Spiritual.
Yes, a spiritual massage. And you know, we use this to replenish ourselves and refresh ourselves, and it sounds very nice, but actually, there's no guarantee that true Dharma practice will necessarily feel refreshing. It actually involves some intensive exercise for our mind. In fact, sometimes Dharma practice can be rather unpleasant, uncomfortable, and not easy. The reason why this is the case is because Dharma practice involves changing our old habits and letting them go, and replacing them with new habits. So in terms of old habits, we have to learn how to let go of our destructive emotions or mental afflictions, and then instill in us new habits of loving kindness, compassion, and so on, and apply effort in that. And that isn't easy. In particular, Dharma practice actually has something to do with transforming our own personal character or our own personality, our personal nature. And that can be difficult. Of course, we have the recent observations from modern science that talk about how meditation can change our brain and so forth, but I think what the Dharma is really talking about is more difficult than that. It goes to changing our character. Sometimes we might have the defense, well, I'm not going to change this because this is who I am. That's my character. So I'm not going to change that. But Dharma practice says, no, that's not tenable. That's not a tenable defense, as it were. Because if your character involves flaws that are harmful, then the Dharma says that is what needs to be transformed. That's what you need to put effort into letting go. And that's a difficult process. It's not easy, it can be intense.
드레인주 산에 다가르 Then the Shiga Summon, me and she, the me, 70 and you are chimbimina. That me Shiga Summon, but that delay, personality delay, you want to hatch. Uma Miji Congress out of Jimina, and Jelia, Jimmy, Chansom Jet, Chai, and Usane, and go personality on you want to hatch. That's the only door.
Chamsen.
Me Chansom Jet, Tambo, the Congress Havo, and Chado Chamber, Jebi, Aye Chamber. That Jemaya legally, or Kashreji. John Darm Chain, Usane, Midi, Uma Tele, Mission Darm Chach.
Lassa?
Takanda me Chansom Jet. Me Jig, Chado Chunju, and me a humble, some of the Jig, King Jongji, Livchi, Chodwa. The child understand Korangi Midland, you are Drew Arella, Koran Mizidland, you are Drew. Jeza, Namjunga Zugi, Mabuji, Karma Shady or Karma Sedusan, laser, then you are to my marriage. That mean a meeting you watch me, and Korati she led in you on drives. Kandar Midi. You watch me in a midi mizide, you want drives. Just that digging Azul Karchosana, give hope summer with the G, Azulia, Rewadang, Azul Jawaya Chidang, Azul and Dunamia, but you think you are something of those. Kandar Susudi Susu never tele, never change, and you want drives.
That's all.
And Tata me, some me Mambochi, Susulia. This Magawaji, the Vimina, and this Jamaya, Mimangoji, Sur Gabachaya, Chayos. That thing to start teaching that is all the Lulin you are down with the Pengamanta.
Lassa?
Ritual chair, Mudra chair, Ramada chair, that the Kalakamua.
Lassa?
That is speech, mantra, Dana Shingi. Kashuraji compassion, Karmapa, Len Gyalwang Mambu, 7 deep in government, Takanda Zodi, and the similar you are dancing. And similar you are dancing, and Susu the Rengxi, Karimbatria and Guanraj. The best watches.
So I think the Dharma is definitely about transforming our personality in some sense, because if we're someone who has a strong character that involves anger or lots of jealousy, then that's something that needs to be transformed by the Dharma. And later on we can become actually someone who doesn't have much anger, who is not very jealous, who is humble, and so forth. So, by changing ourselves as a person, then our life is transformed as well. In Buddhism, we talk about karma a lot, and sometimes we interpret that to mean that everything is fixed in place. We can't change anything because it's all been arranged by karma. But that's not the case. We can change our mind, we can transform our mind, transform our personality through the Dharma, and by transforming our mind and personality through the Dharma, we can change our life. So this can actually give us hope and show us that there is actually a future ahead of us full of potential, full of positive potential. For example, we might not be someone who is well liked at present, but if we transform our habits, then we can be actually someone who is liked and regarded well by others. But to get to this level or state of transformation, it's not going to benefit if we just try to change our body alone or our physical demeanor. If we just were to rely on engaging in rituals and doing mudras from a physical perspective, it would be difficult to bring a true transformation about. In the same way, it's not beneficial to just change our speech to saying mantras or uttering the word compassion over and over again and so forth. What we really need to work on is our mind. That's the main thing. Through changing our mind, we change our personality. Through changing our personality, we change our life. And that is what we should put effort toward.
Dadi sem game chayadi kashwataji nyamne chayadi kashwe Dadi tangi nyomo saade ji kashwe ji telaya ji mityunbi choda mityunbi cho sambarvata ji kharaj lauda tunchok da yuanden ji yage donga da mityunbi choge kandar da pangsa sanan dando kandar kegen de zulia azu da ma kashwe kegen se da de kejum chade ar da delia ji nyomo saadi ngazu ji mityunbi choge da kegen samarve da de ji londe ware 지당기 세당 섬을 다지 다 그러지 나오 변하지 세당 사르보다 되샤 사르 되게 지 텔레비네 간다라 직세나 지 positive side negative side 니가 유에서는 자도 야나 could be changed 섬을 다지 람도 케스 당아주 주저게 시에는 람게를 지래 야나 직디 수술이야 탑 기업 정보입니다. 내고 가수에 양지 가수에 좋아서 기라요 되봐. 다들 집에서 용디 알아. 다 강들이야 이내야 다다 지 대한지 수수기 당연 되실라.
강달 수수
No, that's it.
Oh, that's
That one. Stop.
Okay. So we could talk about the disturbing emotions or mental afflictions as adverse factors in our experience, something we need to transform or dispel, and then we could talk about positive qualities like loving kindness and compassion as harmonious factors that we need to promote and develop. But some of the emotions, such as anger, are not as one-sided. They can be spoken of sometimes to have positive aspects, negative aspects, maybe sometimes aspects that are both positive and negative, or aspects of anger that could be changed, that could be brought to the path and transformed into an assistant or support. So sometimes if we're able to skillfully relate to our emotions, we can bring them to the path and use them as supports.
Overwhelmed control control lamdo kiasa kala khawsharwa
Lasa.
da tros ke lamdo kiasa di ji susulia da ji kala khalsam ge ji kashwe control ji ge wa thane de ji a ji min ju san di ju ze den da tele ibne ya kashwe jimbe shi ma zu ya ge chi ne ane nyubati ya ge tongwa tongne yong tuya ji ma do 당분에 de yong tuya ji this covering this.
Lasso. However, when we speak about taking the kleshas as the path or bringing them to the path, we should know that we're talking about a different situation than being controlled by our kleshas, which is usually the way that we relate to them. Usually it's the kleshas controlling us and not us controlling the kleshas. If we're completely overwhelmed by and governed by our mental afflictions, then it's going to be very difficult for us to bring them to the path or take them as the path. So in order for us to be able to do that, we need to have some control over our kleshas, our disturbing mental events, and that is something that comes about through gradual process. It's very difficult to gain this ability from the very beginning.
That time, when I control Saya Gablia, that control Sane Jiwa, 마산에 지과 다 든지르 지기 지 소소를 choice 지 다 뉴버르 choice 야 뉴버르 지 더고로
Lasso?
산에 지 마산에 지 마더베 엔트 컨트롤 라인 걸이야 라와메바 마스카메르 지지 내다로 충분히미래 아니 시라라 디 뉴버 더고 말 제사 타나야 다 담보디 간다 지지 뉴버지 더고 알아
Lasso? So ultimately, we have to be able to get to a place where we have the ability to relate to our anger in a way that we're not just at the whim of our own anger. So if we come to the point where we can choose between getting angry or not getting angry, then that means we've gained some ability. But if we fall into anger in a helpless way, where we don't have any choice or control whatsoever, then we still have not gained any power of our own or ability in relation to our emotions.
간단다 진지 쉬야디 간다 뉴몬 야면 대사디 마솔리아 가슈레 초니니 스먼 아땅아주다지 저지지가서 에다 초니니 삼동과 쳐가르스 뉴몬이 뭐 된다
Lasso?
다 당고대 가르스나 다 치다 난게 삼루스tam비입니다 지 데려야 치다 디기 치다 난사디 양 아주 넘기 지 뭐보다 난게 셈다 디기 계제데 말해
Lasso?
다이면다 디 조데야 겐르 니버르 니 창고 알았어 지디 양 아주 넘기 가주래 실로네 가다 지 네, 가주래지 formal practice 망보를 제 다나시 지 참바된 지 meditation 제 다나시 지 가주래 퇴삼을 제제 니지 토안에 당 아주지 요모리야 님보 카데작 뉴버드디 아주주 지 가주래 뉴 collect somewhere 다지 드리비치가 아래 다디지래 다드네 니버디 가르쳐서나 니버디다 뇨모바리아시 ngo시야서 뇨모바사데 근데지바 ngo시야지랑 다나 신기 ngo시에네 다디지 가르래 녀모바당 지 수수셈리아 distance somewhere 지 장타로 샤트야지 다디 계속 차려야 알았어
Lasso?
계시 맞아 칠로안에 다지 장바든 이제서 봐 망보지 곰베 다지 추인도 제베미냐 낭셈리아 셈다 녀모들이야 지 가서 distance 좀 시라메브체 and Danaji Yanaji Simdi Yomobalji kind of almost like inseparable with Cha, the Rib Chavi Mina, and Danashi, Danam Jungazi Soda, the revulsion somewhere. The Yomoliaji, Kashwe, that Julobe, Sambasan and Rando, Shambaloba Sambasan and Rando, that Diji, maybe Mina, that Dine, Chi Nambalia. 아주지 망보시 해비미냐 텐담 코란리아 녀몰리아 녀몰 조트야지다 녀몰 녀트야다 가까우시다 알아서
Lasso? Tene gelno kesa di nyomo. Lasso?
yes that make distance and other shallows and that
Lare, tene rempa ni de chi tang chi nang ni lasso. You could say that there are two stages of relating to the kleshas or working with the kleshas. And whenever I say kleshas, for those of you who aren't familiar, we could say that means mental afflictions or disturbing emotions, destructive emotions, negative mental patterns, and so forth. is all klesha. So when we relate to the kleshas, or try to transform the kleshas, there are two basic stages. We could call one an outer stage and one an inner stage. The outer stage involves the formal aspect, where we engage in meditation, we engage in the forms and following the instructions of meditation, we engage in study, as well as reflection and contemplation about the meaning of what we have been taught. And through this, we collect the methods or tools that serve as antidotes, or that will serve as antidotes to the mental afflictions. At the second stage, that's the more internal level, where we actually recognize the mental afflictions that are present in our own mind stream. Having recognized them, we can then start to set some distance between our own mind on the one hand and the mental affliction on the other hand. And it's very important to have this distance be present between our mind and the mental afflictions as a result of our practice. If we practice and practice, but still end up in a place where there's no separation between our mind and the mental afflictions at all, no distance between these two things at all, then our practice really isn't penetrating through to the key point. So to help this along, to help there to eventually, through our practice, arise a distance between our mind and the mental afflictions, we need what is called revulsion. We need some attitude of disgust or revulsion toward our mental afflictions and a desire to part from them. If we don't have that revulsion, then it's going to be difficult for us to get past the mere outer stage of just going through the forms of meditation. It will be difficult for us to arrive at the ultimate purpose of meditation in terms of parting from our mental afflictions.
Mental emotion, the disturbing emotion lauda, and that telling me now, the missusulia. Chikajure Nubasation Summerway. Signomo, yeah. The Cheshire Susuman or something. That's all. And Dana Sing Jidang and Yomon Tangasun and you so Zawe Yomon, the Shashan and Timusum Shigare. That did the Yawachan Wishayarba. That's all. And the Shashan and Timusum de that Karsure. Don't see them. Dom that Zawe Yomon San Andando, that the Dom of the Awashasha. That this was sometime be me now. And it's Sherandi, Juse, Montreal large, and the Jazadi, Digi, Daji, Lignegi, Yachon, this Kalahabush. Lassa? That the Timusade, and Timusade, Karimi, that the Bejan and the Mangus Sheshorba. Lassa? Lame the Mangusunga, the inner deep in government, that is also Lia. More travel, Jidang, Yamsun to school are there. That day, you are how should do. That's at the Karin and what's your money. The telling Yambodin you pass to say. And the Industane, Tikang, that's so sweet. Chesan Dresser, that in your more disregi, Cashway. That kind of love that day. New purchase San down to Yana. That you think some must have covered to pass on the medicine to strengthens. That's all. And the Industane, that name you so the socially Angelia, your more card shoe share, Sherbinia. That dinner was some Yambotian, Kishio, that didn't never scare me. That's all. Kantarian Nazugi, Jacob dealing with mental emotional, somewhere that's a disturbing emotion. The chair Goblia Tang 당분간 successful 차도 그렇게 지 얘가 더야 난지
That's all.
다디 인지미지 아줄이야 가수에 무투이네 지 가수에 냠렌치약 다디 지 뉴버 작보스는 장도 묘버 작보스는 장도 진짜 인도 없이 거야 돼 encouragement 거야 돼 지 저게 방관으로 직터 방관 직총의 미나 아니 양결 가수에지 but 직 방관 샤워는 단도주 제가 try you need to try 10 times
That's all.
10 times you lose 100 times somebody보다 되게 되게 가수에 진짜 거야 쉽지 좀 잘하는 좋습니다
That's all.
진짜 매비는 미망고치 당분에 다 직찬 오즈다 니숨 와 지가르에 not successful 되네 아니 바제다 참샤샤르
That's all.
아니 리자 데메 미치 그뒤네야 에너지 소소기 에 녀모베 원래 좀고 무구르 삼바르지 고구르네서마다 안 사라인데 좀 들리지 무구르 삼바르지 삼바지 거 개점이스
Bowing down.
야 lying down 다 이랑 아주 다 다시라 주주스마다 오케이
People have different emotional makeups. So that means that what's a strong mental affliction for some person isn't necessarily going to be the strongest mental affliction for a different person. Basically, the Buddhist teachings talk about 3 poisons of the mind, pointing to the 3 root mental afflictions of desire, aggression, and bewilderment, which of course can be translated in various ways. And these 3 in turn have many subcategories in the teachings, but these 3 are kind of like the central network for all of the other disturbing emotions or mental afflictions to develop. If we look at aggression or anger in particular, we can see that it is perhaps the easiest mental affliction to recognize and also the easiest to identify as problematic. But if we look at desire, it might be a little bit difficult to recognize, more difficult to recognize, and particularly sometimes more difficult to identify as problematic in comparison with anger. And then with regard to bewilderment or ignorance, that is a mental affliction that is taught a lot about in the texts and by the great masters, but just teachings from texts and masters aren't enough. We need to recognize its presence in our own mind stream, in our own experience, and bring that into our practice. But that in turn is very difficult. It can run very deep in our mind stream. And so there's no uniformity with regard to which kleshas are the strongest in which individuals. In any case, when we set about to transform our negative emotions, it's very difficult to gain success, as it were, or to gain victory from the very beginning. And therefore, what's really important is for us to have a strong sense of resolve, have a strength of heart, and have a sense of encouragement and fortitude when we set about to work with our mind and work with our emotions, because what will inevitably happen is that we're going to experience defeat. We're going to try to relinquish our negative emotions or try to transform our mind, and we're going to fail. So we should have the attitude that if we fail 10 times, that just means we're going to try 100 more times. If we didn't give rise to that firm encouragement of ourselves in the beginning, then it might be challenging, because maybe we could take one defeat or one instance of failure, but then after 2 or 3 instances of failure, we'd be pretty much ready to give up. So having this strong resolve in the beginning and an attitude that we're not just going to completely bow down to our negative emotions is very important.
And Nyomo said this Karwe shoe the Chichon do Sombina and Ranking Angi she Karasure Twincho the Yunde Summer Sambe in the Yagayanda Le Large Pajungus Le Lawanduch
Lasso.
Pajungus on that. Other than the shoe and she Chamni Sadi Dana Sere. Now Samulia Chamba the Niji Saven Seren Jando. Yana Chamba the Niji Gita, come Jodi, Azu Samulia. And give you never see you them to see.
Lasso.
Rangi, thank you, you never see. The Chadiare. And these are Seribic, Casual, sympathy, empathy, sad, hardware, the Jigsadwa, the Lebanon Jigaris,
Lasso.
Takanda Tayimbinia, that is situation somewhere, so Salong, so be the Kuryu down, Nedan, dance, and go Casual, Juandra, Juandru, and Tana Singi and Azu Kaduine, Chicasual, Champagne, Chawalia, involved Chidusane, that she Azu is Shanand of Chi, and a risk, Shanand of Chi, the data of Chick, and that Yana, Jindi, not a devil me do something. This is not my business somewhere. That the religion, I'll do me do something. The digital summer dance and they allow us to take on off summer with the social system. This year, we mean the office. I have to do one drive, then the Charlie or it's just a deacon said, and Azuki, Chamini, Liberty, Savi, Yabati, Candace, I get down with you. Candace, Ning, Patti, two shoes, Ningdo, Maxim with me, contour tongue. Tadi Azuki, Kashu some to Keshim Shadi.
Lasso. Tene ranking Anki, Payale Lagares, Sunyati Karikolare.
No.
Lasso. No. Ranking Kashe ranking Anki.
Delame, Tadi thinking yours.
All right.
Thinking how
Lasso.
Timberway.
Numong Shuk Chechung Yores.
What did you? Yeah.
Lasso. Numong Shuk Chechung Yore. Kashe ranking Anki. Lasso.
Tangian Jimashi.
Lasso. Okay.
Okay.
So, when we talk about the harmonious or conducive,
Your memory, your mom is shoot Chimbina.
Lasso. Oh,
Then live in the
Alternative. Lasso. Ranking Anki. Lasso. Right. So, when the force of our mental afflictions does begin to lessen, then it becomes easier and easier for the positive qualities of our mind to flourish. So, when we talk about loving kindness and compassion, these are qualities that all of us have in our minds already present from the time of our birth. We all have these qualities innately. Science these days tells us that our brains are hardwired for positive emotions such as sympathy, empathy, and so forth. But we get into different situations, such as the conditions in which we were raised, the environment in which we were raised, and things change. And another thing that can serve as an obstacle to the development of our loving kindness and compassion is sometimes we're afraid of trying to help others. We might initially have a wish to try and help others, but then hesitate because we think there's too much risk if we actually try to engage in helping others. Or we say to ourselves, this is none of my business, so therefore I'm just going to disengage. So sometimes it's as if there were an on-off switch to the loving kindness and compassion in our heart, and we choose to leave it on the off setting. Therefore, contemplating to ourselves about how we can further empower the loving kindness and compassion that is already present within ourselves, further energize the pure intention that we possess is very important.
다드네 다드시라 두주시라 맵자 아드린 주산에 간다 다 도나도도르디 에지 compassion 자디 지 아주나 유지 sympathy somewhere empathy 다 되게 될래 지 먼저 다 되려야 more dedicated somewhere more involved in action somewhere. That is kada the mission da dongel ji understanding cha dang de ji ga shwe teleya da ga shwe sha cha we gi samba zama himba jani ane kada dong ye simje saran zang do ana 다 간다 심지 버리부디 지 차셰 교르제 나 드리지 동안에 간다를 지 자와 스메르지 니네 페아로도 드리지 아주 고가래 드리지 요머체 다 대인 주스탄다 대야 안 된제베기 니지 대야 되네 지 가수에 디도 소화에 버서머베 심지어 탐제리야 안든데비다 동해쟁 심지어 탐제리야 안든지 가르에 공부하디 다 개점심 차리 얼바 라서 인비스탄 디규제 되네 다들 메신 어디 야겐 로가데 수수semki 이버도 메신 야겐 로고도 센세 다들네 다 두주시라면인데 온드 롱지 데로치스데 송도 제가 온드 롱딘도잉
It seems that we're running out of time for our session together. So the main point that I wanted to make about compassion is that compassion is a little bit more than just sympathy or even just empathy. It's something that entails more dedication and a heart that entails more involvement in action. So compassion isn't just the mind or heart that understands or feels for the suffering of others or has warm sentiments toward others. Rather, compassion is the mind that realizes that the sufferings of others are actually a part of oneself. And within that attitude, the heart that bears unbearable love for sentient beings. So, therefore, to meditate on compassion is to further cultivate and nurture this awareness that one's happiness and suffering is the happiness and suffering of all sentient beings. The happiness and suffering of all sentient beings is the happiness and suffering of oneself. And when we meditate in this way, our compassion will increase, and it will increase step by step in gradual stages. So that is what I'd like to say about compassion for this morning. And additionally, I've been requested to give a lung, or a scriptural transmission, for the text that I composed on the preliminary practices, brief recitations for the 4 preliminary practices. So I will recite this scriptural transmission now.
지린다 자와싱이 되는 루니지다로 되는 춘제대도 라면 속에 원주는 위에서 상계도 장라리도 코저기도 기억은 지나면서 말을 지지 이름 다스면서 라면 기도 상계도 출연이 미거든이 이모들 심게 차와 저기 뭐지 봐 상계 남주 최저 좀 소는 이동을 이제 저도 무슨 그런 데는 뭐 전부들 라바들 저는 많이 좀 오늘 너무 다는데 이거도 다녀만 다녀서만 녀배서 라면 뭐지 그래서 디제다 버저 도서고는 예 다보다랑 좀 라면 이거도 지로서 도그런다 예라오는 하는 집사면 그래서 랑게 정보는 맞으려는 나도 도그르지는 뭐지라서도 좀 한번 봐보자 그런 하고 마도서 탐지기에서 하는 것도 너무 니도 데벨이 돌리면 영어시에서 저도 도전 넘어다 이제 요라는 냠르샤 이번에 녀만 나도 이제 샤마도 되면서 초베지 지명하는 심정가도 다버도 디버시면 도슨 저거 이제 저도 메레저는 신조르 교르는 거죠. 저번에 가면 메레지가 알아서 보는 그래서 이들을 배만이 되는 거에서 라만들도 이름이서 예상이 잡도 주는 그런 다다 매치고 완전히 되는 오미지 예무 도전을 라서 좀 받으면 저거 좀 안도 여전히 나오는 진리 주변에서 사실은 로그나지는 막고는 나가는 면제되고 잡아나 나버서 맞을 때 저거 라도이게 좋아봐 고좀 라마도 고좀 가면 이게 질문요도 주고 좀 라면 예 한번 튜민데 튜몬인데 치마도 오는 이들 라 이담 길라면 저변만 이제 자야는 도 참 뭔가 좀 야라디바고 만나온 집에서 라면서 만나온 라면 그래서 꾸지마다 라마를 되게 지르기 뭐 더베지 좀 들고 그래서 그래서 파워지도 많이 거를 저거 다단일 버자주 비전으로 되도록 이제는 가지 시행해서 남아도 잘하고 이거 있는 가면은 고소 좀 나와지도 고정은 나와도 라메 고정도랑 루마이즈 예매도 교블었으면 샤고 이번 질람도 라메 나와도 기도 담전 라메 우리는 제시바랑 되게 자고도 도지를 좀 뭐래서 미놈 교와서 라메 이쪽을 자오 춘대랑 저걸 제시 망하면 오늘 망하다 가면 이들 되게 술라가 주도인이 와서 그걸 좀 버자고 다들 안타리디 샌프란시스코 야 다들이 대 가수에 티니버데 요아 좀데 가우샤 좀 생각 정말 또 시라 가우죠 안다리 아미저리아 티 숨바용베 걸리아 안 다와니 기질이야 가수에 지 규주 다들 봐서 좋아하기 고급으로도 충분해 다디 고급디 다 팅당부를 차리야 하래 지계급 나눠려야 이제 규주 정부직 나눠려야 봐서 좋아 고급 정부 팅당부를 차리야 하래 다디 딜레라버지요 다들 고급 타들 아버지 말해 강수디 신만 마체 지제는 신도 하고 말해 다디 가서 하고 그런다 레라고 요 말해 안데 인스타네 다들 이제 레마 다 규주 정부직 나눠려야 하나 고고네 이제 다 규주 가셔다 고급 정부디 this country 가보시라 종송스 내주사 마음발이미냐 강아지 체드 예두즈 만지 단투 투서를 섬섬지 나들이지 자와다 안다는 신기의 이세를 참으시다요
라서 저랑 속에 체도 라서 I'm so happy to be visiting San Francisco for the second time and very happy to see you all. And this is my third visit to the United States, but the first time, really, that I have had the opportunity to have such an extended visit. So this time I have the chance to be here for 2 months and visit various places. I'm very happy to have this opportunity, and it hasn't been an easy one to receive. I don't know if you're aware of how difficult such an opportunity is to receive, but it hasn't been easy. Something I've waited for quite a while, and therefore I'm very happy that it has come to pass, that I'm able to visit the United States for an extended period of time. And my hope and prayer and aspiration in the future is that I will be able to come back again and again for the benefit of yourselves in a similar way.
Loma Senan Jimmy, Tangana, Naran, Loma of Yunana Shilmindo, Naran Lama in a Shim, the Loma Yunaja Shilmindo, the Indusanata, and that Chi Yegam Narolia G. Catred, that woman was too short, the Indusana, and Tizuda Tute Chak, that Pokoti, Majoni, the Indusanata, Yahalea Chinchita, Yara Lumina Pachi Chinche. And Pigage brought to Chong Bina. And Chi Yellow Kalia Yeva Travosoria, Tuyagi, Coco Manga Yoga Sabaruchi.
That's
that Nizi, Zawar Chimukevita Yomre. That you mean that the Yal Leve Jelly Nat, the Lelaji, Chunama. That the lots of challenges, Marmataji. Hardship, similar with that, and Mangosi used to Sumare. That Kandaya and Tade Charimina, that is Kuyano, this Kuyano Joyevitang, and Rawan, or this Cherjoyev, number of those on the Yevi in Dustane, and Lojang and Gita, Jawasan and Rando, Melamsan and Rando, that the Drubiak, Tanya Rudus. That Jugalia and the Kandar is a chair of Darbs to sell you in Dustana and the Aran Kavashacho solution.
It's been more than 15 years now since I escaped Tibet and left for India. And when I did that, I left a note on my table in Tibet, and I wrote the reason for my leaving Tibet in that letter, but I also remember what I wrote so that I can tell you. The main reason why I left Tibet was because I wasn't receiving the opportunity to meet with the many friends I have in foreign countries. Now, you could say that I couldn't meet with the many disciples that I have in foreign countries, but I don't feel so certain that I have many disciples.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So I don't know whether to call them disciples or friends. But in any case, I wasn't getting the opportunity to meet them. And my thought at that time was, if I could go to the noble land of India, which is a free country, then I would have many more opportunities to see my friends throughout the world. But after I arrived in India, it didn't work out in exactly the way I had hoped. There were lots of challenges and a lot of hardships. It wasn't easy to just automatically go and travel throughout the world and meet all my friends throughout the world. So that continued along that way for some time, but now it looks like things are opening up a little bit. It seems that there might be some more freedoms opening up. And I really feel that maybe now I'm getting closer to fulfilling my hopes and aspirations that I had made 15 years ago. So I have great trust in this.
아니 딱 간다. 맹에미 쓰듯 가수래 디스 가수래 간다데 로 듀니 레베 갈야 루르다 까마바레스 지르체
Lassa?
저리게요
Lassa?
안에 다드네 지 드네 로주시 갈야 간다 조줄지 다 간다 드르 제제 총브레 제산도 미진나로야 지 요아 다 챌린지 방법을 총브레 요아 먹을 총브레 제산 다디 요아 총브디 녜게 가수라다지 out of my control somewhere that the 요아 동도 유엔에 요아 신데비스 게 말해 나가는 도시체 다 임비네야 디 요아 신부디게 나 미망고질이야 가수라다지 가수의 펜터 용배다 저를 체 도시ум레 인비스나네 아 베나 디린도 차샤빈데 그냥 좀 미망고질이야 영어체 영어서 뭐 투야당 이 가수의 이면에 대해서 가수의지 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 가보용하다 다나 신기 셈리아 디기요하로 기 디기요하게 가수다 튕기는 좀세지 조토스 삼바를 두스탱도 내주산 다디 통윤주산다 오망아주지 가수의 등에 미진나로 연구망고 심비티 다 저것도 삼사람씩 다 가수의지 even though out of my control but the serve good purpose some other 통도스 다들 인주산에 간다야 그냥 상으로 돼 영어데 가보시다 좋은 수야인
Lassa?
아마 가보시다 수야면 그렇지
Lassa? When I was 7 years old, I was recognized as the Karmapa, but I had no plans for this to happen. I had no preparations for this. When I was 14, I left Tibet and came to India and have gone through many challenges that entailed. So I've gone through lots of big changes in my life, and many of them have been out of my control. But nevertheless, I think that these changes can serve a good purpose. For example, I've had the opportunity to be together with you here today, and I really feel that this opportunity for us to be together today may provide you with some small condition to further increase your own joy, happiness, and well-being. And therefore, even though there have been great changes and challenges in my life, they are not for no purpose. They can be put to a good purpose and become useful. So again, I'm so happy to see you all, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.